Welcome to Soothe Your Cycle, everybody. I'm so excited to see you all. I've been checking out the chat box, and we've got people from different places in Mexico, different places in Australia, all over the States. So this is just super exciting, and I'm so glad to see everybody here. So for everyone that's here in the meeting, feel free to pop. Oh, there's Canada. Yay! So for everyone who's here, feel free to pop in the box where you're from, where you're watching from. As well as if you have anything that's going on for your cycle right now that you need a little soothing, I'm happy to chat about that as well. And for those of you who are watching the replay, do feel free to jump into the Red Circle Lady Business Facebook group and share in there. I'll definitely be checking it out throughout the next weekend. This replay will be up until Sunday evening-ish. So we'll have it up throughout the whole weekend for you to watch. And frankly, it's Sunday and I'm lazy. So it'll probably be more like Monday that I actually get in there and take it down. Ooh, Singapore. Woo woo. I love it. All right. So I'm going to take us over to the slides. And then if you don't mind letting me know in the chat box that you are seeing the Soothe Your Cycle title slide and nothing else insane, because you know how Zoom does that sometimes. And then let me move your beautiful faces to the side here so I can see my notes. All right. Excellent. So welcome, guys. Today, oh, well, I do have a lot of open tabs. Let me see if I can switch that up. Let me see. There should be this one. How's that? A little cleaner. I gotta tell you, those are my tabs cleaned up. Full disclosure. I do have a lot of tabs open. I've always got lots of projects going on. So there's always lots of tabs. Thank you. Love it. Perfect. I saw one of those jokes about having all of the tabs open on your screen, and I felt very called out and was like, yeah, that's me. All right. So welcome to Soothe Your Cycle. So I should start off with just letting you guys know that January is the absolute worst month out of the year for our symptoms flaring up. So if you feel like you had a rougher January or February than you do the rest of the year, I just want you to know you're in very good company, myself included. It's all of the holiday and all of the stress and all of the junk, and it just compiles until we hit January, and then it just sort of explodes all over the place. So what we're going to do today is just dive into how we can really deal with this. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit about who I am. So I'm Stasha, the period coach. I am a business coach for a long time. I started off doing hormonal balance work, kind of a side gig as a business coach, and then I sort of mushed them all together. So I really developed this system of how to balance your hormones, work with them, live with them, and I've developed these systems out of here. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've gotten to speak all over the world. I got to do a keynote speech in Fiji alongside Elizabeth Gilbert, who was one of the other two keynote speakers. I just have really enjoyed this so much, and teaching this stuff to people around the world. It's been such a fascinating journey, and I just adore this work. So no question, there's no such thing as TMI in my world. There's no such thing as a dumb question, a gross question. It's all open game for me. I published my book, The Revolution Will Be Bloody, via a Kickstarter. I just had a bunch of people come in, cheerlead, and we published the book, The Revolution Will Be Bloody, via a successful Kickstarter. It was a ton of fun. And I've also got a charting book that I've also published, and that's another like really good resource. And you can even get a free version of it online, which you may have seen along the way. But there's a free version that you can use for your entire life. That's how strongly I believe in charting. I never want money to be a barrier to getting your charting done. So it's free. You can use it forever. I have people who use it for their entire families for free forever. Like, that's how strongly I believe in it. I have endometriosis, which is how I got started with this. And it is debilitating. It sucks. It took me out for 2 to 3 weeks every month. It was very hard. I spent most of my life in the bathtub or throwing up or just passed out on the floor of my bathroom. It was not fun. And I just explain this because I want you to understand that from the very first period, the first 20 years of my menstruating life, I spent every single month throwing up, passing out in public places, high school, passed out in front of my locker, passed out in English class, woke up in the nurse's office. Like, it's been hell on earth. And yeah, I found a way to make my cycle livable. I call it remission. It's an enjoyable process, and now I really love it. And I was very bitter for quite a while about all of those years that I felt robbed from the beauty of our cycle and the power of our cycle. I've been working on processing through that anger and just turning it into very productive work, but it's still there sometimes. So the reality is I was trying to live in the regular world, but I was bedridden under a heating pad, under a hot water bottle in the bathtub for a good 2 weeks every month. So I would trade shifts for Vicodin so that I could stand up and make it through a work shift, which should never be the reality for somebody. It sucks. You know, I just saw a story of my life pop up in the chat box. Yeah, man, it sucks. It's debilitating and it's the worst, and it should not be like that. But I had this voice in my head that just kept saying, this is not right. This is not just being a woman. This is not the curse. This is just, that's not how it should be. And I never let that go. So I started in high school. I read books on Ayurveda. I went to herbalists and learned about different herbal ways of dealing with your cycle. I did everything. In my 20s, I discovered Deepak Chopra's books about Ayurveda. I discovered Chinese medicine. I started everything. I tried everything. I worked with everything. And just as I kept living and kept trying and kept figuring things out, I slowly started to put together what it means to have a menstrual cycle, what's going on. I realized it's not just your period, that every single day you're in a phase of your menstrual cycle. It's not like I'm bleeding and then I'm not. Every day something's going on. There's a shift in your hormones, and it's predictable. It's a repeatable pattern every single month. It never changes. So you can do so much with it once you understand your cycle, what's going on, and then how to move forward with it. And I truly believe, and I know because I've seen it happen, that almost everybody can find relief holistically. There are absolutely times, like when I have an endo client who says, you know, my doctor has told me to go get the surgery and have this all removed. I say, go get it, get the relief. And then let's figure out what's going on and fix it so it doesn't grow back. So you're not 6 surgeries down the line dealing with it still. But like, get the relief if that's where you're at, and then let's fix it holistically from there. Or let's just kick it holistically right out of the gate, depending on where you are on that level of extremes. So we're going to talk about PMS, because that's really what most of us, you know, everyone has some level of PMS if they're having any kind of issues. So we're going to talk about PMS. We're going to talk about what periods are supposed to be like, what our cycle should feel like. We're going to talk about some of the hidden secrets of your cycle, because I just feel like they're so empowering and they just make us actually see the good in them. We'll talk about the sensual system. So you will, you know, definitely need your pen and paper out for that section. So if you don't have one, go grab one right now. And then I'll give you an invitation to Flow Freedom, where we explore my sensual system really in depth with a really rad community of supportive sisters. So PMS is defined as premenstrual syndrome. It's what happens in your deep luteal phase, those 4 to 5 days before your period, if your hormonal balance is a little messed up. So your PMS is going to show up in those few days before your cycle if it's not working out, if it's out of balance. It's a hormonal imbalance. It's not the curse. On the plus side, that means that's good news because those hormones can be balanced. On the bad side, it means everyone was lying to you before. I'm sorry. Again, there's some anger that I've needed to process over the years of doing this work, so I feel it. But it usually happens when our estrogen gets too high or our progesterone is too low or both. So we can just bring those hormones back into balance and it'll start to alleviate those symptoms. The vast majority of us don't need to know exactly what's out of whack. That's kind of the perk of this, is like, you don't necessarily need to, you absolutely go to your doctor, get tests if you can. Like, you don't also necessarily need to know. You can just start working on this stuff and you'll start feeling better. And if you're starting to feel better, then you know you're fixing it, right? So it happens, it's part of it, it'll keep moving forward. So non-exhaustive list of PMS symptoms. There are over 200 symptoms to PMS. Could not fit that on a slide. But here are the big ones that pretty much most of us have recognized or dealt with over time that come up. You may see yourself on this list. You might be like, holy shit, I'm the whole list. I definitely have had days where I've been like, yeah, I'm the whole list. Great, this is fantastic. So it's definitely one of those things that can happen. Yeah, I put murder in there. It's, it shows me that you're paying attention. But also, I have to tell you, I've had days where I've been like living with a partner and just dreaming of stabbing them with a rusty spoon. So, PMS. We don't want that though, right? We want to be able to like get through that and feel better so that that's not what we're feeling every month. And if that's what you're feeling, just know you're in good company and it's fixable. So the impact of PMS, current reality, 90% of menstruators will have some form of PMS or hormonal imbalance. If you have a hormonal imbalance, it usually manifests as PMS. Foods, diets, self-care, workouts, all of these things are affected and affect our PMS, our hormonal imbalances. So whether it's endo or PCOS or all of those things, all of this stuff affects those symptoms. Everything is harder for about half of your life. We menstruate for a good quantity of our lives. And we're actually physically bleeding for about 7 years of our life on average. And if you think about that, like you're spending about a decade in your menstrual phase, like why should we feel miserable while we're doing it? So, and of course the taboo has resulted in a lot of misinformation and it's everywhere. Like the curse, it's normal, it's part of being a woman. That is all misinformation. It is not. It happens, but it's fixable and it shouldn't keep you down. The impact of the taboo. So we don't get the education that we should be getting because of the taboo, right? Like who learned about the phases of your cycle in high school or elementary school or whenever they're teaching sex ed? Are they even teaching it, frankly? So like, no, we don't get the education we should be getting. We don't know that we're only fertile for 6 days out of the month. We think we're fertile all the time, right? Because, well, whose health teacher told them the reality of that? None of them. Mostly because they were trying to scare you out of having sex. So I think intentional withholding there in some cases, but also just miseducation. I have a good friend who told me that her high school health teacher told them that women have one hole, like a cow, that everything comes out of. This was her high school education. Thank God she was there because she stood up in class and went, first of all, that's not true. Second of all, this is true. And she taught the unit to her class in high school, right? Like, come on. And this is not an isolated story. It was just like the first one I heard. And the fact that like the dude equated all women to cows was just like, I can't even, like my righteous indignation flared up and I had a moment. Self-acceptance. We hate our bodies. Every bit of marketing in the world is telling everything is wrong with you. And because of the taboo, we can't talk about it. We can't compare notes. We can't realize we're all in the same boat. We can't have a decent conversation. We can't support each other. We can't help each other. So we can't really even accept ourselves. And let me even get started. Oh, don't get me started on the whole, like, I love myself, but I am absolutely not going to open this tampon where anyone can see me. I'm going to hide it in my sleep and walk silently into the bathroom and pretend I don't have a period. Then no, you don't fully love yourself. If you're hiding your period from everyone and anyone and yourself, then you have not fully accepted your body. So no. And then of course, trauma. We can't have the conversations. We can't deal with the trauma that we went through. I couldn't say, oh, I just passed out. Oh, crap, I got my period. Because the first time I did that in high school, the girl that was standing there went, ew, TMI. Like, I don't need to hear about your gross period. Because it was the 90s. And yeah, I very quickly learned that I had to lie about the fact that I was in such pain that I was passing out from my period to protect other people's feelings. That's trauma. That's not okay. And then I couldn't talk about it. I had to silently pretend it wasn't happening every month. That over the course of years adds up, right? And that's just my story. And then of course, our culture. Our culture absolutely thrives on our self-hatred. We make a ton of money, you know, the self-care, all that industry, the weight loss industry, all that stuff makes billions off of us feeling like crap about our bodies. And if you look at menstrual marketing, like scented products make me crazy. You're not supposed to smell like lavender. Like, it's nothing wrong with how you smell, unless you have a bacterial infection, in which case you should know and get them help. But like, come on. It's just, they're selling so much crap that we don't need that actually makes everything worse. It makes the hormonal balance worse. Disposable products, scented products, douches, herbal douches, all that stuff wipes out your vaginal ecosystem. It has its own bacterial system, its own immune system. It wipes it all out. And then we wonder why we have yeast infections and bacterial infections every month. Like, come on. So that culture thrives on our self-hatred and our menstrual dread, and we need to stop giving it that power. Yeah, discreet. I just saw that in the chat box. Discreet is a perfect, yeah, exactly. If I see discreet on that next package, let me tell you. So the truth is, it's completely severed us from our power. We have such amazing power in our cycle. Every phase of our cycle has a superpower, and we don't know. We don't know about it. We don't even know we have phases of the cycle, let alone that each phase has a superpower. And that is some straight up BS. We are isolated. We can't talk to people about this stuff. We can't have community. We can't support and help each other. So we feel isolated. There's a negative health impact, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. But there's also that physical, because if we're ignoring our period problems, they're just going to expand and they're just going to start triggering other things. My endometriosis triggered hypothyroidism. It's just going to start taking other things down. A lot of times it turns into adrenal fatigue. It's just going to start taking other symptoms down with it. Confusion, right? Well, we can't chat, we can't help, we can't support each other. So we're just confused as to what in the hell is going on, why it's going on, and if there is even a way to fix it, let alone how. And then we feel less than. No wonder we're trying to be small men, because being a woman, by all accounts, is crap. So now we're just trying to be small men. We feel less than, and we're just reinforcing that taboo the more and more we go. So what does flow freedom look like? Now, I define flow freedom as understanding, enjoying, and flowing with your cycle. Everyone knows that feeling of when it's all just working. You're knocking it out, you're feeling good, things are just flowing and it's moving well. My goal is for that to be every day of your life. Even in those times of real trauma, even when shit is hitting the fan, still feeling like, well, but I know my power, I know my seat, I know how to deal with this. I can be in mourning, I can be sad, I can be angry, and I can still be tapping into my power, into my cycle. So end or reduce your PMS symptoms, that's flow freedom. Not having those things crop up every month, that's flow freedom. Know your body intimately. You should know your body better than anyone else, better than your partner, better than your doctor, better than anyone else. That is flow freedom. Feeling confident, free, happy, and well. That just feeling good, that's freedom. Decision-making is quicker and easier. And this is kind of a weird one because most people don't think like, what does decision-making have to do with my menstrual cycle? Like every decision that you make can be made easier if you know where you are in your cycle and where you're going to be when that thing is happening. Do you want to go do that 10-mile up the mountain hike the day before your period? Probably not. Say no. Do you want to go do that during ovulation? Yeah. RSVP, fuck yeah. Right? Like decision making is way more easy because you can just say like, oh, I know where I'm going to be in my cycle and I know that that's a yes or I know that that's a no. Or that's a maybe, we'll see where I am in my cycle when we get there. But like decision making, super easy for that. Booking calls, booking appointments, I know when I'm going to book them because I know where I'm going to be in my cycle. I'm not going to book that interview for that podcast when I'm in deep luteal or menstrual. I'm going to book it when I'm in follicular or ovulation. So I know exactly when I'm going to book stuff because I know I'm going to feel good. I know I'm going to nail it. I know it's going to be awesome. And I'm going to feel really good at the end of it. And you enjoy pleasure every day. Everything around you can bring you pleasure if you're doing it in flow. So you start to expand your capacity for pleasure. When you start to expand your capacity for pleasure, boy, everything gets better. So the more we can have pleasure every day, even in the small things, the better we feel, and the more it balances our hormones. So the better we feel. So then we feel better, which balances our hormones, and we start the upward spiral instead of the downward spiral. So what could the world look like without the taboo? So if you walk away from here with nothing else, I hope it's trashing the taboo becomes part of your to-do list on the daily. And this is what it could look like if we all team up and do this together. For our communities, our families have a vocabulary and understanding. So just our immediate circle can all have the same vocabulary. They can all understand what's going on. And we can all be able to communicate and understand, like, you know, mom needs a nap today because mom is in deep luteal. But next week, mom will 100% go run around on the football field with you or whatever it is, you know? So we have that vocabulary and that understanding. We fully embrace our bleeding bodies and we empathize and respect each other. I had this vision years ago of someday walking down the street and seeing a nice lady bump into another nice lady and go, oh God, I'm so sorry. I'm in deep luteal and I was just like foggy and not with it. And then the other nice lady pulls out a badass bar of chocolate and goes, oh girl, I was just there last week. I've got this chocolate left over here. Take it. It's yours. See you later. Like to just have this casual exchange of understanding and empathy and respect for each other, like someday. And then of course, community, having red tents in the community, moon lodges in the community, whatever it is, like having that space to go and chat and share and support and help each other. Like that's just a dream, whatever that looks like for you. And I've had the absolute pleasure of seeing red tents, speaking at red tents. I even got to go to a red yurt in Australia and teach a class. So like, there's so many fun ways. I actually got to go to a literal red tent out in the woods. It was fantastic. So like, there's so many cute ways of doing this and people that come together and really just enjoy and celebrate. And how much would that change someone's attitude around their menstrual cycle if they knew that they could go kick it in the moon lodge with the community and just bond and feel good and empathize together. Like it would just change so much. And on a global level, We could move to reusables worldwide, which I have an entire section in my book about reusables, but let me just put it this way. Every disposable has plastic in it. A pad has about the equivalent of 4 plastic bags. A tampon has something around like 9% plastic to it. So even organic cotton, which uses twice as much water as conventional cotton, so still bad for the environment and doesn't change your body's reaction. So still not super good for your body. So moving to those reusables, we throw away something like multiple billions a year in disposable per year. Like, again, I did the math in the book. I don't remember the math off the top of my head, but like, it's a lot. Billions with a B per year. So yeah, it's the second most disposed of product after diapers. We need to change that. We just do. We can see menstruation as an asset instead of a liability. Like, how cool would that be? Informed medicine. The more we rally, the more we talk about it, the more we share, the more we go to our doctors and say, this is what's happening, and I insist on you listening to me and doing something, whether it's testing, reporting, or whatever, the more the medical industry is going to go, oh shit, we better do some studies on this. And we better actually start looking at this stuff in menstruating people as well as, 20-something-year-old white boys, which is what most medical studies are done on male college students, because they're easy. They get paid $50 to do the study. That's, like a couple cases of beer. So most medical studies are done on, college white dudes in their early 20s, late teens. That's not us. That's not helpful for us. That doesn't really apply mostly to us. So having more informed medicine that's on our side, more money in the hands of women. And I mean that like trans women, non-binary, whatever, I don't care, but we need more money in the hands of everyone else. The guys have had their turn. We've seen what they've done. It's our turn now. So let's just, yeah. Yeah, it's time to get more money into our hands. And there is at least one study that I know of that shows that when money goes into the hands of the women, it goes back into the community. When money goes into the hands of men, they keep it for themselves. So let's improve the world. Get that money, girl. Like, go get it. Get it. And then, of course, free, educated, and empowered. Come on. Like, how do we not want to end up there? So flow freedom is possible. It is something that we can all enjoy. We can all have, even me that still spends a day in the bathtub once a month, just breathing and staying alive, because that's where I'm at and that's okay. We can still have that flow freedom and really enjoy our cycles. So a healthy period is PMS free. You should have bright red blood. You may have a little bit of brown blood towards the end of your cycle, super normal, totally okay, don't freak out. But for the most part, it should be bright red, it should look healthy. It might be even a little tinged pink. If it gets too pink, you probably have an estrogen imbalance, but a little pink is okay. Pain free, should not hurt. And so many people that have painful periods are told, take a Midol and get back to work. And actually, what would stop their pain would just be taking a minute away, having a rest, taking a nap, relaxing. So it should not be painful. And that painful should be an indicator of something worse going on, not just that you got smacked down by the patriarchy. Like, it should be like, oh gosh, you have pain. Let's see if you have endometriosis or adenomyosis or something that is actually a painful condition, not, oh, take a Midol and get back to work. That's just not how that should work. It should be restful and it should be transcendent. A healthy period should feel like you're renewing. It should feel like you're reflecting, you're rejuvenating, you're clearing out quite literally any of the junk from the last month, and you're refreshed and ready to go for the next month. It should feel transcendent. It should feel like you have been open to ideas, insights, creativity, that you are just, it should feel good. It should not feel like this terrible thing that you have to fight through to make it to the end. These are just a couple of comments that people have made on how it feels being, you know, PMS free or feeling better. So it is possible. Bethany had 2 weeks of PMS a month, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose her, but I would say PMDD, which is like PMS on steroids. Yeah, I would stick her in the PMDD category, but she committed to what we're going to talk about next. And she has reduced it to having easy PMS, relaxing, and actually enjoying her system. And actually become a certified coach from my school in the meantime, after this actually. Jody showed up in the Flow Freedom program. I'm not going to lie. She came to the call. She said, I'm resisting doing this. We worked through it on the call. So like, she did the work, but she got the benefits at the end of it. So she really did the work. She went through figuring out what the resistance was. She did it, and her results, like, I mean, she just, like, in 2 minutes, she says, I just got out of it in a 2-minute video. Like, there I was out the other side. So it can happen. It can take time. It can happen in just a blink of a moment, but it can happen. So we're going to talk about the sensual system. So this is where, get your pen and paper out. The sensual system was what I developed to help balance my hormones as I was dealing with endometriosis. And it's something that I have guided all of my clients through, and it is something that works over and over and over again. And even in the worst place, like endometriosis is not a hormonal balance, but endometriosis does cause hormonal imbalances, and it's aggravated by hormonal imbalances. So even with endometriosis not being a hormonal imbalance itself, I still did this and got relief. So it's not that I went in and like cured my autoimmune issues or my endocannabinoid system issues, but I did get relief from doing this. And none of this costs extra money. None of this is asking you to go out and buy some weird supplement. None of this is telling you to go eat a bucket of kale every day. This is all about taking the things that you already know and love and just shifting them around and bringing your attention to them. It's the difference between habit, routine, mindlessly doing something, and ritual. Just tuning in, being aware, and doing it with intent. So it doesn't even have to add more time to your life. It just has to take a little bit of awareness and feeling it through. Yeah, and that's a really good point, Ellie. PMS being common doesn't make it normal. Common is not normal. And they're not the same thing. Just because something is common does not mean it's normal. It's a really good distinction to make. So we're going to take a little moment here, your cycle at a glance. So you've got your menstrual phase. It's about 5 to 7 days long. It's your winter phase. So think of winter, you know, it's cold, it's cuddly, you want to get under the blankets, have a cup of hot cacao, kick it by the fire, read a book, chill, very introverted, totally fine. It's your new moon phase. So we can think of it as well as that new moon. It's really dark. You're just sort of cozy and cuddly and introverted. Your follicular phase happens after your menstrual phase. You'll know it because your energy will start to rise. You'll still feel a little like, oh, I want to go out and do things, a little more extroverted. It's springtime for your cycle. Your estrogen is starting to rise. Your follicle stimulating is starting to rise. Your testosterone is even starting to rise a little bit. So you're starting to feel a little bit more confident, a little bit more excited about going out into the world. Ovulation is your summer phase. It's about 3 days long, and this is the same for everybody because your egg is viable for about 24 hours. So you have just this brief window of ovulation. It's your summer. It's your highest estrogen, your highest testosterone, at least in an ideal cycle. It doesn't last long, but you feel very high energy during it generally. And for everybody who says, why can't I just stay in ovulation all the time? Why can't I always feel like this all the time? Because if that was true, our entire globe would be the desert. We can't be in summer all the time. We need winter, we need the rain, we need time to germinate. it can't be all the time 24/7. Like even men don't have that in a 24-hour androgen cycle. They still have ebb and flow, right? So we still need the down to really enjoy the up. Luteal. So the luteal phase, so luteal and deep luteal together, take about 7 to 14 days, depending on your cycle length, to get through. The first part of luteal is post-ovulation. So you'll feel your estrogen and your testosterone start to tank. And you might feel a little dip in energy. You might start to question yourself or second guess yourself. You might be like, oh man, why did I do that thing? That was dumb. Or oh, I don't think I'm doing the right thing, or I'm not on the right path, or I need to rebrand my entire business. Like there's all of this like second guessing starts to come up. But then you start to get a little better. You start to feel a little bit more energy. You start to feel a little bit better because your estrogen starts to rise a little bit. So you start to feel like, okay, well, maybe I'm all right. You know, let me get some stuff done. Like I'm starting to feel good again. And this is where I define the early luteal phase, is this kind of ebb and rise of estrogen. It's late summer. So think of like the days are still long, they're starting to wind down. You're harvesting, you're out in the fields, you're picking everything, you're bringing it in, you're starting to jar and can and prepare. But like you're still doing work, but it's the wrapping up work, right? And then you move into that deep luteal phase. Now this is about 4 days. And again, it can be longer or shorter depending on if you have a hormonal imbalance and how it's going for you. I definitely have times where it's about 7 days for me. I also have months where it's a day and it just is like real quick blip. It's autumn. It's the air is crisp. It's, pumpkin spice latte time. It's fuzzy socks by the fire time. You might not be completely under the weighted blanket yet, but like you're pulling it out, getting it ready, dusting it off. It's that time where you're really like, you should be looking forward to going within. You should be looking forward to having that like end of month retrospective. It should be time to come back together. So what goes wrong? A lot of times it's stress. So this is called the cortisol steal. We take cholesterol and we turn it into pregnenolone. This is kind of a master hormone. Pregnenolone turns into 150 plus different hormones in your body. So like it's kind of a blank slate. Your body decides what to turn it into via where you are in your cycle, what needs you have, what's going on. It will make cortisol, your stress hormone. It will also turn into progesterone, kind of your chill, feel good hormonal. So the second phase, that luteal phase of your cycle, that's when your progesterone is the highest. You need to ovulate to make progesterone. You can't make it if you don't ovulate. So you need to ovulate to make progesterone. And if you are stressed out, your body's going to go, well, look, we don't need progesterone. All this is doing is making her feel chill and keeping a baby healthy if we're pregnant. We don't even know if we're pregnant right now. So like, let's just not make the progesterone. Let's go make that stress hormone instead. We need that. So your body will literally steal from your progesterone to your cortisol. So low progesterone would mean lower cortisol or higher. It doesn't necessarily. Your cortisol goes up, and down every day. So it has an up, a down, and up and a down every day. So when you wake up, it's supposed to rise. That's what wakes you up, or part of the process of waking you up. And then that like 2 p.m. dip is when it dips. And then it rises again in the evening. And then it's supposed to dip again to send you off into dreamland. It can be too high. It can be too low. It can be both. So just kind of like the estrogen progesterone ratio, if your estrogen and your progesterone are balanced between each other, you'll feel good in that luteal phase. If your estrogen is too high, but your progesterone is fine, you're going to feel PMS. If your estrogen is fine, but your progesterone is too low, you're going to feel PMS. If they're both effed up, you're going to feel PMS. So it can affect different places, different things. It can make things go wonky, and it all is in relation to each other. So something can be perfectly normal and still not feel right on the other end because it's just in that relation and that balance. They're not balancing each other out properly. So good question. So basically when we're stressed out, we steal from our progesterone to make cortisol. And our progesterone, again, is that feel good vibe hormone. I often equate it to like, if you've watched Cheech and Chong movie and they've just smoked a joint and they're in the bus, like, yeah, man, everything's cool. That's progesterone. Like, you should feel like, yeah, man, everything's cool. We're all right. We're good. We got this. So we're going to go through the sensual system, and I'm going to give you a very just brief crash course into how to use this. So pick things that you like and start there. So we're going to start off with the taste. I am in Bali drinking a dragon fruit juice because I had a real legit addiction to passion fruit while I was there. So here's your cycle, and here are the tastes associated and the element associated with that particular phase. So we'll see in menstrual, we've got water and salty. So your phase element is water and your flavor is salty. That makes sense. Think of the ocean, like deep, dark ocean water and menstrual, right? I mean, like we are already, like the deep, dark waters are flowing out of us. So should be a pretty easy correlation to make there. I put beets on here. I think that should be fairly obvious. They're very good for the blood. They're bright red, kind of look like little wombs. Good food for menstrual. Follicular is wood and sour. So it's your wood element, right? Things are growing and it's sour. And it's good because it's a very detoxifying part of your cycle. Like I would never tell you to do a detox if you were in luteal or deep luteal or even menstrual. But if you wanted to do a detox, hit it in follicular. Like that's a great time to do it. And citrus fruits are very detoxifying. So if you're going to do your lemon water, just make sure you do it in follicular. Like even if you don't want to do it every day, don't do it in follicular or a lime water or a grapefruit water, or whatever. Just have, your citrus is great for detoxifying, perfect in follicular. Ovulation is fire and bitter. So cayenne peppers are there. But hot, spicy things, bitter things, 100% hit it in ovulation. It's a very fiery time. So you're also a little less sensitive to things. So you really can do that like extra bitter or that extra spicy in ovulation because you're not quite as sensitive to everything then. Luteal is earth. It's sweet and starchy. Sweet potatoes, right? Sweet, starchy, and by the way, phenomenal for your hormonal balance. Helps remove that excess estrogen, hits that sugar craving. You need carbs for a healthy menstrual cycle. So this is a really great way to get some carbs into your menstrual cycle. And one of my favorite things to do is roast a whole bunch of sweet potatoes and take a bunch of them and stick them in the food processor with a bunch of cacao powder and a little coconut milk and make pudding, chocolate pudding out of the sweet potatoes. And a lot of times, especially for me, when I get into that deep luteal phase, I teeter on that line of nausea. The endometriosis does that to me. And sometimes the only thing I can deal with for breakfast is a little bit of that chocolate pudding. But I know that it's healthy. There's no sugar in it. It's just got the sweet potato as the sweet, a little bit of coconut milk for the fat, and a little bit of cacao powder to make it chocolatey. Oftentimes I'll put cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, make it like kind of pumpkin pie spice flavors, or if you have like pumpkin pie spice kicking around in your cabinet from Thanksgiving, this is a great way to use it before next year rolls around and it's all gross and dead. And then deep luteal. Now, the thing about deep luteal is to think of it as a condiment to luteal. So it's not like stop eating the sweet potatoes now, like keep those going, but like let's add some savory and pungent to the flavor profile as well. So I put oregano on here because it is such a good immune booster. Our immune system's usually a little tired by the time we get here. A baby is a foreign object. Like at the end of the day, a fertilized egg implanted in your uterine lining is a foreign object. So our immune system has to dip a little bit so that we don't reject it as the foreign object that it is. So having some extra immune boosters, especially in that like week right before you get your period, is really good because it just gives you a little extra protection against any kind of like immune system issues. For low carb lifestyle for pain and health reasons, totally get you. I have a client with MS, so she can't do like any fats, which was a challenge, but we figured it out. But substitute a raw carrot for the sweet potatoes. Raw carrots actually have a specific fiber in them that helps remove estrogen. Who would have guessed? I certainly did not have that guess. But we actually do a raw carrot challenge sometimes in my Facebook group where everyone just commits to eating a raw carrot a day for a cycle to see how it feels. And the stories that have come out of there have been really impressive. So do a raw carrot. You can just chomp on it, but you can also get excited with it and do things like shred it on a salad, mix it with some vinegar. Just don't cook it because that kind of pulls out some of that fiber. All right, so what phase are you in now? What foods do you enjoy that would be in flow now? And go look in your kitchen if you need to, because you've probably got something that's in flow already in there. So feel free to pop it in the chat box. What phase are you in now? And what foods do you think that you would enjoy that would be in flow? And make a guess. Think about it. Menstrual foods. What's red? What's blood supportive? What's salt watery like? You know, think about it from the element perspective as well. Get a little creative and have some fun with it. Getting cold sores on my period or before normal. So that's likely the fact that your immune system is dipping a little bit. So you probably have I forget which one of the viruses, the herpes viruses that affects cold sores, but usually that's when your immune system dips a little bit. So your flare-ups will come through. So like endometriosis, immune system dip, every thing that I've messed up in my body. So like my knee that was busted by a kid in high school, every injury I've ever had just flares up those few days before my period because the body's autoimmune or the inflammatory process is peaking, your immune system's a little lower. So it just, yeah, it can be really at that time. So that's probably what's going on. Ovulatory, almost in luteal. Excellent. So you might want to think about like what's a good sweet and starchy food that you can enjoy in luteal. Sweet potato, yeah, Manifa, you're definitely in that deep luteal. I see you all cozy with the blanket. I know that look. If I were in deep luteal, I would be teaching this class from bed right now. Radishes for menstrual. Ooh, that's a good one. I like it. In spring phase now, so feeling a little slow and sleepy, but loving my immunities that have lemon and citrus in them. Yes, I love it. I'm actually just cusp of follicular and ovulation, and I've been drinking throat coat with the lemon in it because a little bit of the citrus. Follicular phase, kombucha, sour. Yes, absolutely. Sour, fermented. In fact, in my in the Flow Freedom program, we talk about the fermented foods with the cycle and how the follicular phase is a real spot on one to get those in there. So really well done there. Luteal to deep luteal. Yep. Don't have anything yet. We'll get some. Love it. Ovulation. Nice. Luteal, lower appetite now and slight nausea. Yeah, I so feel you. Ginger. If you like ginger, get ginger. If you run hot, get mint. But most of us run cold in that phase. Ginger will help with the nausea, help settle the stomach, will warm you up from the inside. I make ginger tea, and in my friend group and people I've lived with, we have the fuck you ginger tea. I asked for it specifically. Guys, I need somebody to go make me a fuck you ginger tea. And they know that means to add way more ginger than feels like is safe and to brew it for way longer than seems rational because I need it to be so strong that it kind of hurts. Menstrual last day and no cravings right now, just those minor cramps. Yeah, so just kind of let it move through you, let it release, let it go, let it flow. Yeah, you can absolutely mix ginger slices in with green tea. It depends. Green tea green tea is kind of a good tea if you can tolerate caffeine. I will say that we have a harder time processing out caffeine than men do. They can process it out within like an hour or two. It takes us at least a full day, if not two, to process caffeine through our bodies. So a lot of times caffeine can actually make it worse. So if you're struggling with anything, I often tell clients that drink anything caffeinated to quit the caffeine after ovulation, go half calf to green tea to nothing, or, switch to decaf or, decaf green tea, whatever. And then don't pick it up again until you're through your symptoms. So, if you feel better on day one, great. You can kind of go back to normal then. If you have a couple, 3-4 days into your period before you start to feel better, just stick with it until you're out the other end. But green tea, I mean, it's great. It's got good antioxidants and stuff in it. So like even I don't do caffeine anymore because it really aggravates the endo. Like endo sisters, I'm so sorry, no caffeine for you. But every now and then I will have a green tea. I just make sure it's in follicular or ovulation because it's delicious and it's not terrible for you. And I will process it out before I get to that part of my cycle. All right, so let's crash into smell. Yeah, same with PMDD. Caffeine is a no-go. And like, if you're in one of those extremes, it just let the caffeine go, let the sugar go, step it down if you have to, but those stimulants are not your friend. Okay, so smell. Menstrual, again, water and salty. I put ginger on here, which I know doesn't really kind of go with water and salty, but like ginger is such a good smell for menstrual that I just went with it. Follicular, wood, and sour. We've got cloves. I mean, look at how woody they look. They look like little pieces of bark. They're so good for a smell in follicular. Ovulation, fire and bitter. I put black pepper on there because it's nice and spicy. Luteal, that earth, sweet and starchy. We've got chamomile. It's nice and calming. It's slightly sweet. And then that deep luteal, that metal, I put eucalyptus because it's that, eucalyptus is sharp, right? So it's kind of metal, it's pungent. Now you can get your smells any way you'd like. I have a drawer full of scented candles here where I am because I have an office in this digital nomad life where I am right now. So I have 4 different candles, one for each phase of my cycle. I travel with essential oils because they're tiny little bottles and they're easy to travel with. I often travel with incense as well because they don't really take up much space and they're pretty easy to have anywhere. Spritz bottles, I travel with a teeny tiny little spritzy bottle. So I'll put a drop of an essential oil in there and water and it'll just be like a little room spray. Diffusers, cups of tea. Sit down, intentionally brew yourself a cup of tea, like maybe that chamomile tea or clove tea or something. Sit down, intentionally brew that tea and smell it. Sit with it, let that smell. And I underestimated smell. I'm going to tell you straight up, when I started putting this together, I underestimated smell. It was the last sense that I did. And it was only because I was like, well, I've done every other sense. I should just do smell. I underestimated that. Smell is our oldest sense. It connects straight into our deepest recesses of our brain. It is connected very deeply to our instinctual body. So I really underestimated the impact that smell can have on our hormones and how we feel. Don't make the same mistake I did. So I almost always have something, a diffuser going, a candle, incense, a little roller ball on my wrists, something going that just smells amazing in the phase I'm in. And don't forget fresh cut flowers. Fantastic, blooming bouquets, right? Jasmine and lilacs are 2 of my, I mean, you could just bring me lilacs and we'd be best friends for the rest of our lives. They're my absolute favorite. But like, just think of the flowers, get yourself flowers. And I absolutely believe that we should have something special that we do for ourselves every menstrual phase. And I often get myself red flowers. Whatever's in season. I don't get the like expensive bunch of roses. Also because expensive bunches of roses die like the next day. But I'll go get, Gerber daisies or tulips or whatever's in season, or even carnations if that's just what's kicking in the market that day. But I like to have that red bouquet and I take it with me. It sits next to my bed at night. It comes out onto the kitchen table for breakfast. It goes into the office if I have one, wherever I am, and sits on my desk with me. It goes back to the table for lunch, goes back to the office afterwards. It goes back to the table for dinner, and then it goes back to the bedroom at night. Like, no joke, my flowers come with me all day. Yeah, take a moment when you're cooking and smell your food, right? Especially if you're going to eat and flow. Take a moment to really enjoy the smell of what you're making for yourself in flow, right? Like you might not want to like huff that black pepper right out of the grinder, but you certainly can grind it into what you're eating and have a moment with it. Cedar and sandalwood might fit that salty smell totally. Savory and pungent, but beachy too. Absolutely. And it's also, smell has connections for us that are personal. So like I have a sandalwood that I absolutely love in follicular, but I will tell you that every now and then in menstrual, I pull it out and I go, oh yeah, that's the one today. And you know what? Listen to your body. It knows better. It knows better than any slide deck that anyone in the world's ever created. So sometimes, especially when I'm feeling a little indecisive, or like I'll pull out something to smell that's like in flow and I'll kind of go, man, that just doesn't, it's not hitting for me today. I'll go through and smell things until I'm like, that's the one. And it could be something that it's like a complete opposite phase. But if that's the one that hits that day, that's the one that hits. Do it. Ooh, orchids. Yes, I love those. God, they smell so good. All right, so sight and sound. This is one that I got really early because I am a highly sensitive being. Took me a long time to realize this and admit it out loud to the world. But I'm one of those people that didn't buy a cell phone when they first came out because I was like, oh, I don't want something making noise in my pocket all the freaking time. I don't want people to be able to get a hold of me anytime, anywhere. Like that sounds terrible. So I was like one of the last people to get a cell phone of everyone I knew. And I never have it on ring. It's always on silent. So whenever I'm like, crap, where's my phone? Someone's like, oh, I'll call you. And I'm like, that will never, ever work. It's never on. It never makes noise. The only time it makes noise is if I'm literally waiting for somebody to arrive. Otherwise, it makes no noise ever. My computer, the only things that make noise is Slack, because it's my work communication tool, and iMessages, so that the like 3 people that are allowed to iMessage me can get through. My email doesn't make noise. Nothing else makes noise. And 9 times out of 10, I can't hear the beginning of the Zoom meeting because it actually turned my computer to silent. And I have to go, why can't I hear anybody? Oh, right, because I'm muted. I'm like, not I'm muted, but the computer's muted. So I kind of realized this pretty early, but sight and sound, direct correlation to our cycle. Because I love a good kick-ass action movie in follicular and ovulation. But when we roll around a deep luteal and menstrual, it feels like I'm under attack. My whole body is tight, intense, I'm stressed out. I probably will end up having nightmares just because the stress of it all is just hitting me, or the suspense is hitting me. Even those like quiet, suspenseful movies, I'm like, no, it's too much. It's too much for me. I know my partner pre-screens things. So he'll be like, this is not for you, or this is for you, but not till next week. Like, thanks, great. I don't want to have to do that work anymore. So yeah, there's a direct correlation between how much screen time you can tolerate, how much brightness you can tolerate, how much loud noise you can tolerate. I have playlists on my YouTube channel by phase. Feel free to go have a play, see what you like, make your own playlists, steal, that's what they're for. But I have playlists by phase. Like I'm a Pearl Jam fan club member and have been since the 90s. But even I skip Pearl Jam songs when I'm in deep luteal, because I'm like, oh, I love you, but like if this isn't one of your chill tunes, I can't do it. So let's move on to like the hanging drums or the singing bowls or something for now. That's been helping me so much, turning my phone computer brightness depending on my cycle. Yeah, so that actually perfect, because that brings me to my next tip. Put the dim thing on 24/7 when you reach luteal. Like whatever your computer is, whether it's the like nighttime or do not disturb, or Flux is one of those apps that removes the blue light from your screens. Whatever you have for you, turn it on and just leave it on the whole day when you're in those late luteal menstrual phases. Like it's okay, no one cares. It's fine. I even have pink tinted glasses that I wear in deep luteal and menstrual, and I have the screen filter on 24/7 when I'm in that deep luteal menstrual phase. It's fine. Give yourself a break and tune in. How do your eyes and ears feel? Like right now, do you feel like you need to turn it up, turn it down? Like adjust. It's okay to adjust. But if your ears are like, ooh, they're feeling a little tight and scrunchy, turn it down a little bit. If you're straining to hear, turn it up a little bit. If your eyes are feeling a little tired, turn that screen dimmer on, or turn the nighttime filter on, or turn it off. Like it's all for you to adjust as you seem fit. Do it with flow, and you actually end up helping balance your hormones while you do it. Win-win. Touch and movement. All right, this is a fun one for me. This is actually one of the first ones I did after food, because I was a dance major and I worked with dance companies, and I taught yoga and Pilates and ballet art until I was in like my mid-30s. So I did touch and movement real early to help deal with my menstrual cycle. So menstrual, rest, stretching. I will sit in the tub in menstrual, even in deep luteal where you see yin yoga. I'll sit in the tub, but I'll stretch in that hot water because it just feels good to let my pelvic cradle kind of stretch a little bit, but it has to be in that hot water to feel good. I'm an extreme case. Most people would probably be okay with, you know, a yin yoga class or something in that deep luteal menstrual area. But also don't be afraid to say like, today is a rest day and just skip it. It's okay. The best athletes will tell you that recovery is one of the most important parts of training. You have to rest. Follicular, go for a hike, get outside, do something that's moving, that's a little, you know, maybe a little cardio, a little challenging, maybe do some weightlifting, and get out there, start moving, get the lymphatic system flowing. Ovulation, hit it hard. Go to that boot camp class, do the, you know, yoga advanced class, like go hit it hard, enjoy. Early luteal, I love Tai Chi. I do the hidden style of Tai Chi. And in fact, my partner teaches it and he does free classes on his YouTube channel, generally 3 times a week. So I do Tai Chi actually throughout my entire cycle. But it's that luteal phase is a really nice time because you're still moving, you're still stretching, you're still kind of using the body resistance for muscle work, but you're not, you know, super extending yourself. You're not pushing it too far. And I will tell you that a mistake that I see people make, that I've had clients over and over and over again make, you get into that luteal, deep luteal phase and you start to bloat, you start to retain water. There has been studies done that it doesn't make a difference whether you're an athlete or not an athlete. We retain water. There's no amount of working out that's going to reduce, you can reduce the bloat through gut healing, but it doesn't matter what you do. You're still going to put on a little bit of weight around that luteal, deep luteal phase. It's normal. It's natural. Go ahead and wear the stretchy pants. It's fine. It's going to come off as soon as you hit menstrual phase. But the mistake that I see women make, and I see them come to me because they're having all these issues, and then one thing that we change is letting them eat food because they start to starve themselves because they're putting on weight in this phase, and they start to work out harder because they're trying to less calories in, more calories out, right? That traditional male wisdom. Less calories in, more calories out, and that's how you lose weight. And it's 100% not what works for women. We end up holding on and retaining weight because our body thinks that we're dying. And it's like, well, I gotta hold every ounce of fat that I can now, or I'm gonna die. This is crazy. So we end up gaining weight every cycle because we're starving ourselves and working out really hard. And it's just terrible for our bodies. And by and large, again, dance major, athlete, weights are better for us than cardio. So I'm just gonna give that as like a free little gem right there. But for most part, we actually burn fat lifting weights, not doing cardio. So let yourself off the cardio hook a little bit. I mean, it's still good for heart health and all that stuff, but like it's not your weight loss go-to, and it shouldn't be. And frankly, it screwed the whole weight loss nonsense anyway. So you're gonna put a little more on, that's okay. It's gonna come off the next cycle. It's fine. It's the ebb and flow. Yeah, I worked with some personal trainers and taught them this. Yeah, it should be known. It really should. I never thought of my cycle working with my music once. I'll be tracking this, and I think working out playlists that work. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Put playlists together for each phase of your cycle. I love it. I definitely do. So then our last sense, spirit, we need to have a way of communicating, feeling good, that spiritual sense. I don't mean it in a religious sense of the word, but you're welcome to if that works for you. We're just in that kind of like connection to the greater good or a better planet or however you want to see it. So I recommend, one of the many things I teach for spirit is journaling. This is, I think, a really great thing. I highly encourage you to grab a menstrual journal and just keep it and use it for these particular thoughts throughout your cycle every month. Like you can have another journal for other things, but this particular, like working through the menstrual cycle journaling. So we're going to actually start in luteal for this one. Luteal is your what phase. It's great for making lists. So early luteal is oftentimes when we wrap up the month before. So you make those lists, you know, what got done, what didn't get done, what needs to get done, what can wait till next month, what we wanted to do, but really it's not on task and we should probably never even bother with it or like bump it down the road a couple of years. Like those lists kind of come out in this early luteal phase. We're just naturally nesting. So we're trying to wrap up loose ends. And if we go with that, we can really powerfully wrap up the loose ends and then really plan for the next month, even if it's just going like, okay, you know what, I don't need to do this. Like this can be a next year project, or like, I really want to get this done next month, put it top on the priority list. You don't have to do anything about it, just put it there. Then when you go into deep luteal, ask yourself those what questions. You know, what's working in your life? What's not working in your life? What could be better? What could be worse? What are we grateful for? What systems are working really well? What should we improve? What systems are not working well and we need to get rid of them or redo them, right? So all those what questions. Menstrual, why? Go back to your luteal, ask yourself why. Why was that working? Why was that not working? Why was that system working well? Why wasn't it? Why did I enjoy that? Why did I hate that? Why did I procrastinate on that? Why did I knock that out immediately? Ask yourself all those why questions. Follicular, how? You have this amazing capacity in follicular to really see systems. So go figure out, how are you going to accomplish this goal? How are you going to deliver this system? How are you going to serve your clients best? How are you going to get the word out there about what you're doing? How? And then in ovulation, go do it. So if you have anything that you need to do in follicular, you can start to do it in follicular once you sort out how you're going to approach it, and then just knock it out in ovulation, wrap it up in luteal, right? So I call this my what would Hermione do system. What, why, how, do, because Hermione is a smart, savvy lady. I mean, she saved those boys' asses in every book. So what would Hermione do? Luteal, what? Menstrual, why? Follicular, how? Ovulation, do. And I love to tell the story of the dirty socks principle. So I invented this when I was putting the system together. You and your partner live together. You've decided laundry is your household responsibility. But every month, your partner puts their dirty socks just on the floor or like next to the hamper. And they never quite get them into the dirty clothes bin. And every month, a few days before your period, you vision murdering them with a rusty spoon in their sleep. Just, oh God, wouldn't this be great? I'm gonna just hack those feet off right at the ankles this time. Today's the day. It's murder day, right? Like, you know what's wrong. The dirty socks are not getting into the damn hamper. You know what's not working. Now in menstrual, ask yourself, why do I want to commit murder over dirty socks? You're not their mom. You're not their maid. Probably. Okay, you know, I get it. I'm supposed to be doing laundry, but like, I'm not the maid. I don't need to get the laundry into the hamper. I'm not supposed to be picking shit up off the floor. You are a grown-ass adult, right? So now you know why. Still, we're not doing anything about it. Because in follicular, we're going to figure out how to have this conversation. In follicular, we're going to go, you know what, my partner tends to hear me best after a hike or after an orgasm or after a pint at the pub or over a glass of wine at dinner. But you know your partner, you know how they hear you. So in follicular, suss out how you're going to have that conversation. In ovulation, go have that conversation. And I'm telling you to have it in ovulation because statistically, people will give you what you want in ovulation. Women in tipped positions make the most in their ovulatory phase. And this study was done on waitresses and strippers, right? Tipped positions. They made the most in ovulation. So now that I've taught you how to manipulate people, please use your powers for good and not evil. But give yourself the best life you can possibly have and get rid of that annoying nonsense that is just dragging you down, and fix it, and do it in your business, and do it in your relationships, and do it for everything. Because if you do it every month and you tackle one problem every month, a few months down the road, you're not going to have any problems. And your luteal phase is not going to cause murder anymore. Your luteal phase is going to be like, ooh, actually, what worked well was like everything. So what can I do to make it even better? Your luteal phase is going to turn from what's not working to what could be better. How could I even how do I even expand my capacity for pleasure even more, right? So you will start to ease into, boy, things are working out really well. Now, you know, what can I do to sustain this is a good question. What can I do to keep this ball rolling well is a good question. And then of course, move it through the cycle, but problem solve with your cycle constantly, every month. All right. So here's kind of my step-by-step process for how to get to this flow freedom place. So start off with chart and observe. And this is where you just want to start charting. You know, you can use the free mandala chart that I've got. You can use an app. I don't care. Just get started. Just start charting. But you're going to want to start charting things like, how do you feel? How are your moods? How's your energy? You know, if you're tracking food, like you want to do food and flow. If you have an eating disorder, don't start with food. If you have any kind of disordered eating issues, don't trigger it with this. Let it go. Work with smell, work with something else, that's fine. But if you don't, start tracking, what are you eating and how is it affecting your mood and your energy levels? How are you seeing it play out in your symptoms? Track your self-care. What did you do for yourself that was good today? Because if you don't have something on that self-care every day, girl, track your self-care. The more you track your self-care, the less symptoms you're going to have. It's just direct. The more self-care, the less symptoms. That's just how that works. So track your self-care and see those symptoms start to dissolve, right? So track and observe. I also like to chart the moon. I like to see how the moon energy is reflecting in my energy. So if I'm bleeding with the new moon, I often feel very tired and I'm just going to spend the day napping and reclining. Like that's just all that's going to happen. But if I'm menstruating with the full moon, I often find that full moon energy kind of boosts me up a little bit. I feel a little bit of energy in my menstrual phase. So I like to track the moon as well, because it does seem to affect how I feel. And I find that I have yet to have a client where it doesn't seem to have some little bit of influence on their mood or their energy. So I like to track that as well. Experiment, see how things feel, see how they affect you, right? This is how I figured out that I cannot eat gluten. I experimented with different foods. I found out that when I quit eating gluten for 30 days, I had a period that was almost entirely pain-free. For the first time in my entire menstruating life, 2 decades later, I found out that was the problem through experimentation. And then I found out that if I got rid of the sugar, the PMS, and the fatigue, the brain fog started to clear up a bit. If I got rid of the caffeine, some of that pain went down even further. So I was able to experiment and see, now I know where my lines are. Can I have a little caffeine in follicular? Sure can. Can I have a little sugar in ovulation? Sure can. When I roll around in the luteal, it's time to cut it down. So I know where my lines are. I know where my boundaries are. I play this game with clients with all sorts of different categories. And you can kind of see, yep, this is an all or nothing. This one I can kind of hedge my bets. These I can do in certain phases, but you start to experiment and you start to see how it affects you and what you can and cannot get away with. Review. Take a look back every single month. I look back at my previous cycles, and sometimes I look back at the years and I just see all of the years laid out and see what has changed and how things were different. So look back and review, see what's happening, see what's changing, and keep in mind that our hormones change in every decade of our life. So what works for you today is not going to work for you 5, 7, 10 years down the line, because your hormones are going to shift as you grow older. So you need to review and just kind of keep that in mind, that things are going to shift, things are going to change, you're going to have to adapt, but that's what you have charting for. And then you can adjust. So you can adjust as necessary. And then roll into that flow freedom feeling. Really enjoying that flow, really enjoying the cycle, problem solving, getting shit done, making life easier. Running a full-time business in 22 hours a week, like me, it's doable. You don't have to work full-time to have a full-time lifestyle. And that's because I refuse to buy into that patriarchal nonsense of a 40-hour work week. Like, I don't need that. I don't. I get it all done in half the time. It can be done. So I like to think of it as 8 weeks to flow. Most people find that in one cycle, they've gotten relief, but give yourself 8 weeks. Start with charting the first week. And this is what we do in Flow Freedom. Start charting the first week, start your taste for a week and play with it. Play with smell for a week, play with touch movement for a week, sight and sound for a week, spirit for a week. And then we have a kind of closing circle when we do live rounds. So it's a really nice way of just working through everything. Give yourself 8 weeks to really try stuff and have a play, but almost everybody sees improvement in that very first cycle. So flow freedom is for you if you're open to the idea that cycles can be pleasurable. The very first challenge is getting out of the mindset that has been preached to us every day of our lives for however long you've been on the earth. So the first thing is just going, okay, well, maybe I can have some cycles that can be pleasurable, right? And as we went through that what, why, how, do, those are your superpowers in each phase of your cycle. You're really good at sussing out that information in each phase of your cycle. Those are superpowers. Use them to your advantage and use them to make everything more pleasurable. If you want more connection, Flow Freedom is great, but you're going to start getting signals from your body. And you're going to start hearing them, and it's going to be hard to ignore. It's going to be hard to repress. It's going to be hard to ignore it and pretend it's not happening. So if you're open to that connection to your own body, and then of course in the Flow Freedom program to the community and the sisterhood, this is a really great system. If you're ready to play, I love to have a play. This is not a high stakes game. There are no side effects from trying this stuff. Have fun, have a play. Keep it light, keep it fun, keep it pleasurable. We're not doing serious hard work. We're having fun. And if you're brave enough to trash the taboo, it does take a level of bravery to do it. You have to be okay with having these conversations, with being in the know. And that does take trashing the taboo in your own mind and maybe even in your own home or community. So you have to have that bravery to say, fuck off patriarchy, I got this. It's not for you if you're looking for a pill to pop. We're not going to tell you like, you can do this and never have a period again, or like take this one supplement, it's going to fix everything. I mean, I'm happy to recommend supplements if necessary, but like almost all of us, it can get improvement just by making some of these lifestyle and diet changes. So it's not about a pill to pop and then continue living your life completely disconnected from your womb as if it doesn't exist. If you have no chill, I don't like people who are like going to come into my inbox and start yelling at me because they didn't see a result in the first day. So like, if you don't have chill, if you're not willing to have a play, if you're not willing to like see how things ride, it's probably not for you. If you don't like flow puns, don't join my communities if you don't like flow puns, because we make a lot of flow jokes and flow puns, and it's a bloody hilarious experience some days. We have a little bit of fun with it. So if you don't like flow puns, you're going to be really annoyed real quick. And if you prefer hard work and deprivation, if you're a person that wants to work really hard and sacrifice and like really feel like you are the best ever because you've deprived yourself, you're going to get really annoyed in my programs. So it's not for you if you like deprivation. I'm not going to say that you're not going to do any work. You may have to give up caffeine, right? Like you may have to give up dairy. You may have to do some hard work. But if you would rather do hard work than find a way forward through pleasure, is probably not for you. So I thought I'd share some of the success stories. There were just 3 because they fit on the slide nicely, of people who've done this process and have had success for it. So Chris dealt with migraines and acne, both of which she got rid of and dealt with through the Flow Freedom program and the Sensual System. Sudiksha did the same thing. She had a real actual like just longing to learn her cycle. She struggled with some low energy and fatigue, and we moved through it, and she just came out of it really so amazing. And she also comes from a culture that is very taboo around menstruation, right? Because women couldn't even cook and can't be in the kitchen during menstruation in her culture. So she really wrestled with getting through that taboo. And Jo, man, she was like PMDD borderline. She was able to come out of it and really tap into her body and get into her cycle and enjoy how it affects her daily life, her relationship with her body, and she really moved forward. So if you want to jump into the Flow Freedom program, this is what's included in it. So if you're thinking about like, this sounds good, I want to try this and I want to dig in deeper with a great community, this is where we're at. We have short videos. They're under 10 minutes for the most part. I admit that some of the spirit videos hit 12 minutes, but all the rest are about 8 minutes. They're a private Facebook group for us to chat, share, learn, communicate, help each other, deal with stuff, all that good things. Exchange recipes. I've got a huge recipe section in there as well. Live Q&As into our Facebook group. So I do 2 live Q&As a month into the Facebook group where you can jump on, ask questions, get feedback, share. You know, one of the best things about those is just everyone in the comments sharing their stories, what they tried this month, that kind of thing. Insights, stories, rituals, inspiration from our community. It's just a fun place, and it's an open space. And then, of course, ethics and values. I really like to talk about how we can approach our cycles from an ethical place, how we can improve our values, how we can actually sustain and improve, like, say, the environment with what our choices in our menstrual cycle. And so for a few more days, the price of the program is $497 for a total, or 4 payments of $127. And on the 22nd, because it's February 22, and I decided at 2:22 p.m. Eastern, the price will leave the early bird price and go to full price. So if you like a deal, jump in because you get $200 off. And I also would just like to point out that you can do the 4 payments. They're not more expensive. I don't believe in punishing people for not having money on hand to pay in full immediately. So my payment plans are not a punishment payment plan. They're just that price broken down and rounded to the nearest 7. So it's not a punishment payment plan. It's the same. So you can feel really good if you want to do the 4 payments. That's totally fine. You're not getting punished for it. And that's part of my ethics and value. I'm not punishing people for not having immediate capital. So head on over to theperiodcoach.com/flowfreedom. You can sign up for the program there. And as soon as you do, you'll get immediate access to the content, and we'll get you into the Facebook group. You'll get the link, you can join, you can request, and we'll get you into the Facebook group as soon as we can. You'll have, a couple questions just to find you in the system and make sure you belong in there, because it is a private Facebook group for just us. So you can jump in and you'll get immediate access to the content. You can get started, and then that content will drip out for those weeks. So you can start right away with the charting module and start tonight with your charting and have that charting module right there for you. And then you'll get the next sense each week. All right, I'm going to stop the share. If you guys have any questions or comments, you are absolutely welcome to ask. I am here to answer. I'm going to cruise through the box right here real quick and see if there are any questions that I missed, because I do know I missed a few. But yeah, feel free to post in the comment box if you have any questions or comments. We also have a few people who are in the program who may want to pop on and share. Yeah, oh yeah, there you are. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hello. So I am in the program and I absolutely love it. But I did have a question that came up. So you were talking about progesterone and how if we aren't ovulating, there's no progesterone. So how would that play for someone who's taking birth control, and birth control then prevents ovulation?
Yeah. So birth control is sadly not a hormonal replacement, right? So birth control, a lot of us are sold the idea that it's going to regulate our cycle and that it's just our hormones through pills to help regulate our cycle, but they're not. They're not actually bioidentical hormones. They're actually chemicals that are slightly different. So where hormonal birth control has a progestin, which is not progesterone, and it actually is inflammatory versus progesterone, which is anti-inflammatory. So like right there, we've got a disconnect because that birth control pill is actually causing inflammation, whereas our natural menstrual cycle has a built-in anti-inflammatory response. So that right there is that disconnect. The other thing is that you're right, you're not ovulating on a hormonal birth control. It can happen, which is why it also has a thick cervical mucous membrane that hormonal birth control creates in the body, so that if you do ovulate, the sperm still can't get in, but it by and large stops ovulation. So what happens is when you ovulate, the egg comes out of a follicle in the ovary. It kind of like explodes out, which is why sometimes people can have a little ovulation pain as it releases and pushes out through the ovary. That space that ripe egg left behind collapses in and becomes the corpus luteum. That little organ is created. It's the most highly vascularized organ in your body in this brief moment of time. It's very quickly turned into an organ, and its only purpose is to pump out progesterone. And then if you're not fertilized, if you don't have a baby being made, it disintegrates. So it stops making progesterone as it deteriorates, and your progesterone should theoretically slide down gently into your menstrual phase. Not to say that that's what happens for all of us, but it's supposed to happen. So it just starts to come down, it's supposed to kind of come down quietly from there. So if you're not ovulating, you're not getting progesterone. You might have some residual progesterone from a previous month, but you're not getting progesterone because it can't be made. Because if you don't ovulate, you don't have that space to turn into the corpus luteum. So you just can't have progesterone. So when you're on birth control, you're not getting progesterone. The downside to that is progesterone protects our bone health. So osteoporosis, early onset osteoporosis, extreme osteoporosis, all results of long-term birth control use. Heart issue, one of the reasons that heart issues are so high in women that use birth control, especially for long periods of time, is because they're not getting any progesterone, and progesterone protects their heart. So long-term health, those are two huge ones, like really, really big ones. But I get that it can be kind of hard to think about, like, 20, 40 years down the line. So also, not having progesterone oftentimes will show up in things like acne, dull hair, not feeling good, mood swings, feeling bitey, brain fog, fatigue. A lot of the PMS symptoms that we have is a result of low progesterone. And it's very common for people to have high progesterone and low progesterone, or high estrogen and low progesterone, excuse me. So very common for people to have high estrogen, very common for people to have low progesterone. And that can be because they're not ovulating every month. So they're not getting that progesterone in their cycles. And you still can get a period. It's just not an ovulatory period. So you can have an ovulatory or an anovulatory cycle. So if you're not ovulating, like on birth control, you're not getting that ovulation. So you're getting a period, but it's just a withdrawal bleed. It's not an actual period. So that's how that kind of works along with that. I still, I had this question today, can I chart if I'm on hormonal birth control? Hell yeah, you can. And you should. Even if it's not a real period, you should still be charting, even if you're on hormonal birth control, because you still want to see how your moods and your energy level and your digestion and everything is affected. And then when you come off of it, you have all that data so you can see what changes as you come off of it. And it can oftentimes be tough coming off of hormonal birth control. A lot of people feel like they crash when they come off of it. So it can be really helpful charting and preparing yourself to come off of the hormonal birth control. And that can be a real asset for it. Let me see. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you, Stash.
I feel like sometimes I get all tangenty and I'm like, did I actually answer the question?
And I would like to add to charting in the way that I have with your paper tracker. There are so many benefits. I was always a tracker where I did it via like my cell phone, which is not bad. And I still use that as a tool, kind of like in real time. If like I had to run to the bathroom, I'll track, my stool, what it kind of like looked like or, felt like. I'll try and use that in real time. So then when I do get to sit down, I can then put it on paper. But I have been able to like lay my months out and really kind of then say, okay, like how long were my cycles? Where did I get these symptoms? Is that a reoccurring pattern? And then being able to then apply your sensual system of what we eat, smell, it has, and I feel the difference in me. And I mean, everyone knows that I'm like, I geek out about this now because it's just how we kind of went back from the beginning. How are we not taught this at the beginning or like in school? It just still blows my mind. Like it just still blows my mind, but it's been amazing.
Absolutely. 100%. Yep. Absolutely. I so get it. And it's so cool to be able to go back and see like, oh yeah, this does happen every time the same month. Or like, oh, you know what? This only happens after I eat this. Or this only happens after I have a really crappy night of sleep or whatever. And it's like, okay, that's not necessarily a hormonal balance issue. That's like I need to eat better issue or I need to sleep better issue. And then you can really tell. This happens a lot with headaches. A lot of times people think they get random headaches, but it turns out that actually they're getting them every month right before menstruation or right in those first few days because their estrogen drop is too drastic and it's causing headaches or migraines. And so they're thinking like, oh, I just have a headache. I need to drink more water or I need to take an aspirin. And in reality, it's a hormonal balance issue. Good, drink water. But in reality, it's a hormonal balance issue and we got to work on the hormonal imbalance, drink water, but not just drink water. And that's why it's not working usually. I get cyclical migraines if I'm not really on top of it. And I'll be like, oh, well, I guess I'll go drink a coconut water and hope that it helps. And sometimes it does help a little bit, but sometimes it's like, nope, I just have to live through the day and make it to tomorrow when the estrogen was more leveled off and the crash has basically worked its way through my system. So, but then at least I know that, like, at least I know like, okay, I need to go rest. Like, this is just where I'm going to be for the day. So. Let's see, I've been off my mini pill. I used it for pain for about a month and a half. It's crazy how fast my body went back to some sort of normalcy and my cycle started to make a bit more sense. Yeah, some people spring right back and some people take 3 months, 6 months. I will say you're on the mini pill, so it's not as drastic hormones, which is usually a pretty easier bounce back. Take a note, if you feel a little wonky at month 3 and month 6, just know that that's very common. Coming off of birth control for whatever reason, the 3-month mark and the 6-month mark oftentimes have a little fight to them. So if you feel like you get to month 3 and something might feel a little awry, don't stress, just stick with your flow, stick with your chartings, you know, use your senses, and it'll probably balance out in the next couple of months. And you might feel another little dip at the 6-month question mark. I don't know why it's those months. It's just something that I've seen. And Holly, who wrote the book Sweetening the Pill, teaches, or at least she used to teach, coming off of birth control safely, like how to do it so that you're not feeling quite as crazy or weird at the end of it. And she also said that, you know, she noticed that with her people as well. So I don't know, it just is a weird thing. How would having my tubes tied affect my cycle? Does it change things to a large extent? Up until very recently, I have had absolutely no clue about my body pretty much at all. So this is a big learning curve. Girl, you are in good company. This is a big learning curve for all of us. Like, don't feel behind the curve. We all are right where you are, or have been right where you are. I mean, I didn't have any clue about this stuff either. So like, no judgment, totally fine. Having your tubes tied shouldn't affect too much. I mean, your ovaries are still working. Nothing's been cut off. Your tubes don't make hormones. You may feel some discomfort. I know sometimes people can have an adverse reaction. And I know that sometimes if something happens physically, like a cyst or a fibroid, endo, I mean, that's a rarity, but like that kind of thing, that can happen, but it shouldn't make too much of a hormonal difference for you. I can't say that I'm an expert in tube ties. I have not had clients with that, and it's not something that I've come across a lot in my work. Most of the people that I work with are either using fertility awareness method as their birth control, or their partner's got the SNP. So I can't say that I'm a huge expert on that, but just, it shouldn't make a big difference to your hormonal balance. It shouldn't have any effects from it. But I do know some people have had pain or weird things that have happened. So, you know, if something is coming up, like if you feel any pain or pinching or anything weird, go to your doctor. Like have them do an ultrasound or a manual physical check or something, and just make sure it's okay. Because I do know things have gone awry, but it's not often, it's not common. It shouldn't happen too much. And yeah, it shouldn't affect your cycle. My son is 1.5. I started getting my period again after he turned 1, and I feel I lose track of my cycle because I go from 28 days to 50 days, and I tend to feel such dryness to the point of pain, which is crazy because I drink a gallon of water almost every day. I feel you. In Ayurveda, I am a Vata. So like, I am just always dehydrated. Never of a day of my entire life have my lips not looked chapped. Like, I'm just always dry. So my first suggestion is going to be stop drinking a gallon of water, start putting a little trace minerals in your water, or do a little salt sol in your water. Easily Googleable. It's just a little bit of basically like saturated water, like pink salt. Or get yourself some coconut water, like go buy it by the case and just have a coconut water a day. They're far more hydrating than plain water. So if you're struggling with dehydrated dryness, the first place to start is to get some mineral rich water, coconut water, something with electrolytes in it. I try not to suggest things like Pedialyte, although it's the best of them, but like Gatorades and stuff, because there's just a bunch of crap and sugar, and you don't want that. And especially if it's something that you're going to do daily. Do make sure that you get coconut water that does not have sugar added. I don't know why they would do that, but they do, and it's gross. And it dries you out. You know, sugar is dehydrating. Caffeine is dehydrating. So if you've got any sugar, dehydration, caffeine, get rid of those because they're all dehydrating. Look at your fats. You want to avoid the vegetable fats like the canolas, the soy, the safflowers, those omega-6s, because they're inflammatory. Yes, we need omega-6s, but we have so many of them in our modern diets that they've, you know, anything too much of a good thing is a bad thing. This is a case of that. And traditionally, our diet used to be a pretty even ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s, and or even more 3s than 6s. And now it's like 100 to 1, 6s to 3s. So make sure you're getting your omega-3s, eat really healthy fats. So I know in the US, we're not going to be able to get avocados pretty soon, but coconut oils, grass-fed butter, right? So not all butter is created equally. Conventional butter actually is bad for you. It has lots of omega-6s and it's inflammatory, whereas grass-fed butter has lots of omega-3s, it's anti-inflammatory. So go spring for the good butter. Ghee, yep, love ghee. A good grass-fed ghee is just, I mean, I make my own ghee. It's not hard. And it's way cheaper. So like you can make your own ghee at home. I have a recipe on theperiodcoach.com, just search for ghee. It's very easy though, like really. So try those things. Those good healthy fats can really help you start feeling more hydrated. And even animal products, right? Like good bone broth is going to help seal the gut lining, which is going to help you stop losing minerals and hydration, like those electrolytes and stuff. So getting some good bone broths. And I'm a chicken bone broth person. Now I'll buy a chicken. That's what we'll eat, you know, especially in follicular phase when chicken is more of an inflow food. And then those bones turn into bone broth. Again, not a hard thing to make. You can pop them in the crock pot and not think about them again for like 2 days. So easy to make, free if you buy a whole chicken and just make it yourself. I always get 2 turkeys at Thanksgiving because turkey bone broth is my favorite of the bone broths. And I always make a ton of batches of bone broth out of that. And yeah, just make sure you're getting good salts. So get rid of the sodium foods in the diet. So anything that has, you know, sodium in it, and use real salt, you know, make them at home, make real salt. All right. That looks like all of the questions in the chat box. So I am going to sign off for the evening. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, there's your Celtic sea salt. Yes, love a good Celtic sea salt. Absolutely. Pink salt, sea salt, Celtic salt, red salt, black salt, all of those things. There's so many kinds. They're all very delicious and they have different like mineral combinations and stuff. So, you know, variety is the spice of life, even in your salts. Eat the rainbow, even in your salts. When I have a home, I have an entire salt drawer: red, black, gray, Celtic, pink, Himalayan, all like so many different kinds of salts in there. So yeah, go for it. I love it. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. Nugget says hello and feed me dinner. So I'm going to go feed her dinner. Let me know if you need anything. You all have my email address. So if anything comes up, hit reply on my emails and let me know. I'm happy to help. And hopefully I will see you in our Flow Freedom program. We don't have like a program start date. There's no like, it starts and ends. You can jump in. I mean, I highly recommend you jump in before the price goes up, because who doesn't want to save $200? But we do it every month. And you can repeat it every month. And then I will say that after the school opens up every year, we do a live round. So we'll all do it together. We'll all start at square one together and we'll all do it as a community. And we usually do that in like September, October-ish. So it's kind of just like a fun way to boost it all together. But we do it all year, all the time. You buy once, you're in for life. It's not like you have a membership. You don't have to re-up. You just get to come in, do it, hang out, fade out, come back, get on the horse, fall off the horse, get back on the horse. You know, that's what we're there for. So enjoy it, jump in with us, and we'll see you in Flow Freedom. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye.